Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Brilliantly Resilient Live. We are so excited, and by we, I'm Mary Fran Bontempo with my buddy Kristin Smedley. We are so excited because we have one of our favorite people ever with us today, Jen Croneberger, who we're an unlikely group. Well, I'm an unlikely member of this crew because Kristin and Jen are very sports oriented. And I say this to Jen all the time that, when I first met her and heard about her background, I thought, I'm never gonna be able to relate to anything this woman says. And yet I relate to every single thing that she ever says, because her message is universal. She's got an incredible way of putting it out there. So we want to welcome Jen Croneberger to Brilliantly Resilient Live and hear about her reset, rise, and how she shares and reveals her brilliance to the world. So welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's so good to see your smiling faces again, even if it's this way. It's,
right.
Right? It's no hugs, but I'm sending virtual hugs.
Virtual hugs. Virtual hugs.
It's always good to be around you both because I find myself smiling more.
Sometimes it might be a gritted teeth, scared smile, like what's happening in front of me here.
If that might be today, I don't know. But I'm happy to be with you both. I'm happy. Thank you.
Awesome.
So tell us a little bit about your background, because that's where all of this started with you in that sports world. And then we'll talk about, how you eventually made that transfer. That's where the brilliance part of it comes in, where you made that transfer of your skills. So tell us a little bit about your background.
So I was a 3-sport athlete growing up, and softball was my first love. I went on to play and then coach, actually. I still play today. So I have not hung it up yet. So I'm waiting. I don't know when that's going to happen. It might be this year because we might not.
Might be the end. Yeah, it might be the sad end of your softball career, but we hope not.
Yeah,
we hope not.
We hope not. And then I started coaching, and I was coaching at the high school level, the college level, and 1 year at the pro level. And I decided that I would go back to school and get my master's degree in sports and human performance psychology, which there's never a good time to do anything. Let's just say that.
Yes,
first.
there's never the perfect time, for sure.
Yeah.
So I just decided while I was running my sports facility, which was I opened a 20,000 square foot training facility for athletes. I was running that. I was coaching college softball. I thought, now's a good time.
Because I have so much free time to do this.
Right. And I share that quite honestly because I feel like when I made that jump and I did it, I look back now and I'm thinking, I have no idea how I did that. But the story behind that is there's never a good time. So you just, if you're going to make a decision and do something, just make the decision and do it. Because it's not, it doesn't open up all of a sudden and say, now do it now.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I started working with athletes from professional to 7-year-olds to everyone in between. And I realized it was all the same stuff. It was about how we show up every day. It was about overcoming obstacles. It was about bouncing back after injury, after failure. It was about building confidence. It was all that stuff. And I thought, this is just real life. I mean, this is what we do every day, right? It's not about sports. Mm-hmm. So I took that into the corporate world and into organizations and schools, and it worked. And it just became something, other than just a sports specific work. So for now, I have transitioned that over the last, I'm going to say 10 to 12 years, and have been speaking in corporate settings, have been speaking for organizations and government agencies, have been doing some consulting work and coaching. And also, I show up on occasion in schools and do that. So for me, the transition was pretty simple. Mm-hmm. Because like I said, once I really realized that, you don't have to be an athlete to understand this and to know, like, this is just about being a human being and how we do things. So that's kind of where that whole thing came from, and where I, how I got to where I am today.
You know, it's really funny because the first time I met you, we were speaking at the same event,
Yep.
but it was this the Victorious Women Gala, and
Yep.
just the demographic in that room could probably not have been further from sports. It was like a whole bunch of me, and like with different hair color and all in this big room.
Yeah.
And again, when I heard of your background, I thought, what is this woman going to possibly say to this crew that's going to resonate? And really everything you said resonated. And I just wrote down one of your quotes here. It's about how we show up every day. You can't get more universal than that. It's at its most basic. You know, that's what this is about. But you also, you crystallized it even further to 5 words.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about the 5 words, because that has always fascinated me. I'm a word junkie. So,
Right.
and I'm also a non-superfluous, like, give me the meat. Don't fluff it up. Give me the meat.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the meat.
And then there's me. I give you
there's her.
5,000 words. When Twitter extended their amount of characters, I was the happiest
wasn't it?
on earth. I was like, I can't say hello in the Twitter characters. I'm like, so the 5 words, I'm like, you got to be kidding me with this. When I first heard that, I was like, girl, go, because help me. Help me.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I mean, you know, the funny part of that is I'm just like you. I could write and speak on and on and on. So the 5 words concept is kind of interesting to me too. But this is kind of where it came from and why it works. In the sports psychology world, there's an idea of how we, and it's interesting, some of the things that you all are talking about fits into that. So there's this 3 R's idea of how we move from doubt or suffering from low confidence or any of that stuff, how we move from that into a positive mindset. And it's about reframing. So the first R is to recognize. So it's kind of like, oh, there it is, but not beat yourself up over it, right? It's the, okay, there's the thing, there's that monster, there's the doubt, there's whatever I'm dealing with. So there's the recognize, and then we all have to take that nice deep breath, because we all know breathing resets the body.
Mm-hmm.
So there's kind of the moment of, we call it regroup. So we're going to take a deep breath. There it is. Take the deep breath, and then we're going to reframe it. And the reframe comes in something positive. It's typically talking about a strength, or, you know, something that you want to shift your mind to focus on. So that's the foundation of where this came from. Now, I was working with a professional baseball player, and he was just about to start spring training. This was years ago. And he called me down from Florida, and he said, you know what, Jen, give me something to take into today because I'm nervous. I said, okay, Matt, why do you play? And he said, that's easy, because I love it. I said, so your mantra today is going to be for love of the game. I have no idea why I counted it. I was an English major. I'm not a number. So I'm not,
Me too. Me
totally
too.
bizarre. Like I have no idea. I was like, for love of the game. There's 5 words, right? And it was this weird thing. And so the next day he called me, he said, well, that worked. Give me something else. I was like, well, I don't know about you, but I would not reinvent a wheel. Just use the ones. He's like, well, give me something else. And I wish I could remember exactly what those words were, but they were 5 words again, because I counted them again. And so that became a thing. And I started to think, well, maybe there's something to this, how the brain processes and how we reframe. Maybe if we made it that simple, that you find, what are your 5 words? And you start to utilize that as a reframe, as something that, you know, I'm in this mindset, I'm in this negative space, I mean, you know, whatever it is, that inner chatter. We always joke, right? If you talk to your friends the way you talk to yourself, would you still have friends? And a lot of people say, no, probably not. I'd probably be all alone. So I think the interesting part of that is we can reframe, we can rewrite, but it really has a lot to do with what are we saying to ourselves? Because you know what, we wouldn't talk to other people that way. But a lot of times we're saying things to ourselves that are more negative. And the idea is, how do we change that? So we did, and then it stuck. It became a thing. And when I was working with the professional softball team, before every game, we would meet in the locker room, and I would just have a little chat with them right after their batting practice. And I would post up 5 words on the wall right before you walked out. And every day they would be interested to see what the new 5 words were. And I'd see people touch it on the way out the door. And even the pitchers would write it in Sharpie on their arms just to remember.
That's cool.
And it became a thing. And so when I wrote my blogs, every blog had a 5-word title, and that's what I wrote about. And then that became the book. So my book is called These 5 Words Are Mine, which also is 5 words. And every title in the book has 5 words. So that just kind of became a thing. And now that's what I utilize every time I speak. There's 5 topics, or, whatever it is.
The thing that I love about that is the structure of it. I mean, when we talk about reframing things, and first of all of the stuff that you said, the recognize, regroup, and reframe, it's like the recognize is our reset, the regroup is the rise, and the reframe is the revealing your brilliance.
Right.
So it's a great structure. But the thing that I like about that is sometimes when we get involved in this talk about, you have to fix your mindset and blah, 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 like, give me a way to do it. And that's a way to do it. Like it can go off into this nebulous sort of, that fluffy area.
Yep.
But this is a really specific strategy.
Exactly.
And that's what we try to give people.
This is based in science. I mean, this has been researched and proven that, how you walk through this pathway, how things, change and rewire in your brain, and what you need to do to make that happen. I went beyond that. And after I got my master's degree and all these different certifications in that stuff, I started to really study, what is this? How does the brain connect to the body? How are we, utilizing our thought process, all of that stuff. And it all comes back to very simple things that we can do like that. And that's one of my favorites, because you can do that in 3 seconds.
Well, that's what I love about it too. It's manageable.
Yeah. It's easy.
Yes.
It's easy.
Yes. Manageable for most people. I got to narrow it down to 5.
Right.
But it is, because when you're in that, I've been there, where you're in that and your head is going around and around with 9 million words that you shouldn't be saying to yourself. It is nice to knock yourself right out of that and have that 5-word mantra.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now, does the 5-word mantra, you said that, when you were working with that ball player, that it was that one thing. Can that change? Does that change for people? Like, do you have to have, like, I think one of the reasons that maybe people resist that is because they say, well, I can't think of 5 words for all the time. So how do we tweak that then, depending on where we are?
So here's the answer I give everybody when they ask that same question. Yes and no.
All right.
Yes, it can change if you want it to. So in different circumstances, there might be a moment where you might sit and think about, okay, I'm dealing with this right now. What 5 words would help me get through this? And it's, it's kind of like a little, it takes your mind off of what's going on, because you're actually working physically and mentally on producing 5 words to shift your mindset. So not only are you doing it, that's the outcome, but the process of doing it is already shifting your mindset. Right? Yeah. So in each situation, you can come up with new 5 words. It can be whatever you want. And sometimes just the process of doing that does the work for you. The second piece of that is, I think a lot of people have like a 5-word mantra that they try to live by, and that can be its own thing, which is great. And I've seen people do that. Hey, this is my kind of my theme. This is my all the time. But then I have all these other ones that I use when I get stuck in places, and they could change every day. It doesn't matter. The point is, find something in that moment that you need it and stick with that, and then use it and practice it.
Do you know what's funny? When I was going through, not that it's funny, but when I was going through one of my biggest life sucker punches 3 years ago, I had just, over a period of time, had just lost all of who I was. Too many other people and opinions in my head, you know. And for some reason one day I decided to go back because I was at my wit's end. And I thought, when was I my most happiest? And it was actually, I figured out, it was when I was 10 years old, had discovered I was an incredible soccer player and I was on the soccer field, like I envisioned it all. And then for some reason, and this is why I love your work so much, for some reason, the words that people said to me back then were the words that would play in my mind, and I let those play. And it was, you're gifted, you're talented. It was words that they said to me, and that finally eventually pushed all that other stuff out. And it was so powerful. So I'm so happy that we had this chance to talk today, because those words were so powerful. They're in my big faith speech that I do now, about that. Those were, you know, those words guided me back into who I really am. And then everything, the trajectory just went wild. But man, are our words powerful that go on in our own minds, and powerful the words that we put on other people. Like, thank God I grew up in the home where they said words that were empowering and wonderful.
Me
because
too.
Holy smokes.
Well, and I agree with that. And I think that's why, you know, what I also gave, the freebie that I gave for today is an exercise in exactly that. It's an exercise in looking at, you know, what are my strengths, and to write them down and to focus on that. And I have done this, I can't tell you how many tens of thousands of times. And the most interesting piece for me is that we struggle doing it. And we struggle doing it. And I always ask, you know, why was this hard? Why do you think this was difficult? And the question is even on that page. Why do most people struggle with this? And there's a bunch of different answers. But what's so fascinating to me is that because we don't practice it, you know, I've had people literally sit there and say to me, I have never been asked to do this before. I have never done this in my life. I have never sat down and thought about what I'm good at. Any question that I've been asked to think about is, how can I improve? What are the weaknesses? What are our opportunities, right? However we want to put them.
Yeah.
But we're never asked, make a list of your strengths. What are you good at? And
well, I think that's because we're always, I mean, I know when we were in school, that was the focus. Like, let's get better at the stuff you're bad at. I don't want to get better at the stuff I'm bad at. I want to get really, really good at the stuff I'm good at.
Right. Because you know what? We can't be good at everything. So there are certain things where I can very quickly say, that is not my lane. That is not my lane. I was never meant to be good at that, and I'm okay with that. And I will stick over here. This is my lane, and I can be good at that. And I think too, especially, and I'm going to say this, especially as women, we are taught to be small and quiet and all of those things, right? We're taught to don't shine because you're going to make someone else feel bad. So we pull ourselves in and we pull ourselves down and we shrink. And my own story, you know, that's exactly how I was as a kid. You know, I didn't want to stand out. I didn't want to be that one. And so, you know, when we do that and we're teaching our children that today, even today, we're seeing this overabundance of, you know, oh, don't brag. Nobody likes that. Be humble, right? And I think we've taught that to a fault, because I think that's why we struggle. We struggle trying to figure out, what am I good at? Because we're not allowed to think about that. We're not allowed to talk about it. We're not allowed to even say it. Like, I am good at this. People be like, wow, she's bragging.
Yeah.
You know, quite an ego on you. I mean, it's a little ridiculous, because when boys do it, when men do it, it's different. And that's just fact.
Well, and I think if we could look at it as, here's what I'm good at and here's what I bring to the table. Let's see what everybody else brings to the table. I think if we could look at it in a more, this is a cooperative effort framework, then it wouldn't be that. It wouldn't be perceived as bragging. It would be perceived as, here's my area where I can help out.
That's right.
Now let me find the other people that in the areas that I suck at, and let's see where they can help out. But I think you're right. It's we maybe if we turned the lens outside a little more and said, this is not about bragging. This is about how can you bring your talents to the world and share them.
Right. And I think the interesting thing there is, you know, and I use this as my tagline all along, is because we're not meant to do this alone. So we need a team. We need other people. You know, it's not about I can do it all on my own. Nobody can. And so the sooner we can recognize that and realize I cannot do it all on my own, that is okay. I need to know who to surround myself with and who to ask for answers and where to reach out for help when I need it. That's critical. I mean, it's critical because we can't do it alone. So, these are my gifts. Let me find someone else who has gifts that I don't have that can help me, do whatever it is I need to do.
So I have a really cool story that you'll love because it's sports. My daughter is, she's the multi-sport kid, right? And years ago, she walked away from soccer, gouged me in the heart, because she had a lot of stuff was going on upside down in our house, and the age thing changed, and she had to bump up and then got into this whole elite thing, and people were a nightmare, right? But at the same time, she also had this basketball team where the coach just kind of guided and let the girls figure it out. And it was a group of girls that they had a 50-50 season, and they were only like 12 maybe. And I listened to them, and the way that, and this is what I want my daughter to carry through her entire life. They would sit there and have conversations, just the girls, and say, here's what you're strong at, here's what you're not strong at. So we're going to go with your strength, and then she's going to support you on this side because she's better with that. And that's how they talk to each other. And Carissa would be on the phone and they created a playbook based on people's strengths, and nobody was upset at their weaknesses. They were so empowered by their strengths, and it was the most uncanny. Do you know that her first love is basketball now? She totally switched because, and I know it was because of that season and being allowed to do that.
That's right.
And now it goes into these teams, and sometimes she's like, whoa. So we look at teams a lot before we commit to see if she's going to be able to have that same mindset. And it's just something innate now with her that she doesn't even realize that this doesn't happen around the world, So I'm like, oh my God, trying to guide it to always have experiences where she can do that. But it was really cool.
Yeah, that in and of itself is something we can all learn from. That's something that I tried to do with my players when I coached. It was a lot about, we'd have drills on the field one day, and I would just have them all. I would just go like this, and everybody would come to the pitching, circle, and we'd stand there, and I would say, okay, give me a PCP, and not the drug.
I'm like, whoa.
I know.
How about that?
Yeah, no. And it stood for praise, critique, praise, right? So I said, what are we doing well? And I would let them do it. And it wasn't about what I said, my feedback. It was them giving each other feedback. And it was, hey, I thought, you did that double play really well. I think what we could do better is I could whatever. And then, but in all, I think our hustle was really good today. So little things like that gave them the ownership to be able to call out strengths in others, to be able to call out like, hey, this is where I think we could do better. And however, this is what we really did well, or this is what you did well. And I'll tell you, that changed everything. I mean, the way that they trusted each other, the way that they built that relationship as a team was phenomenal. And that goes a long way. And that can be done in the corporate world too.
I was just going to say that's a perfect segue to what you do, because you talk about this compassionate leadership model. And Kristin, it struck me that when you were talking about that coach, that's basically what he was doing. He was being a compassionate leader and letting those girls, kind of take the lead and all. So tell us about that, how you make that transition and that whole compassionate leadership model. It's fascinating.
So it's exactly that. It's understanding. So I took some time recently to really study empathy, love in the workplace, compassion, all of those things that, for so long, you're like, oh, we don't talk about that here.
Yeah, don't sound like they belong there. Yeah.
Like my joke and how I started off my last TED Talk was literally, we don't want anything too touchy-feely. That is literally what someone said to me over the phone like 10 years ago. And I thought, did she just say too touchy-feely? And it stuck with me because I thought, wow, people like, did you hire robots? Because that I wasn't aware of. How you want to take the humanness out of the humans is what we tried to do for so long. And it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And I think people are starting to see that. So now I'm seeing this pendulum swing back to starting to really understand the whole person, and understanding that when someone walks into the workplace, they're not all of a sudden a different person than they were at home. They're the same person. They're dealing with the same stuff. It doesn't change. Gone are the days of leave that outside the door. That's like, come on in, but leave your hand and your left leg and half of your head outside, and then just come in and do your work.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. It's ridiculous when we're thinking about how we're trying to segment people into, don't have any emotion, because that's not okay. So my focus is to bring that back and to say, all of the research I've done, and I have piles of it sitting here that I've been going through, it all says the same thing. And it all says that why today more than ever, and especially now, we need more compassion, we need more empathy, we need leaders who are going to step into a place of vulnerability to be able to connect with people, and for people to see them as humans, and for to be visible, to be seen, and to see others the same way. Because when you're vulnerable and you're giving some of that compassion and empathy, it allows and it gives others the permission to do the same. And that's valuable stuff. I mean, that's what makes people want to stay, because all the research has shown, 85% of people who were surveyed, this is from the 2017 in the workplace that Gallup does, 85% said that they were not engaged or connected at work. 85%.
Wow. That was 2017?
That was 2017. So now fast forward to where we are, and we're looking at this epidemic, right? Not the one that we're dealing with right now. I'm talking about a different one, to be honest. This epidemic is called loneliness. And what is scary about this is that, loneliness has been seen to have the same effects to your body as obesity. It's actually a greater risk. It's the same as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And the stats are incredible. But the thing that stood out the most to me when I did this research on loneliness is that the highest risk factor group right now is 16 to 24-year-olds. And that number is rising.
Wow.
And so we're in a spot that we have some work to do. So I bring this up because the whole idea of understanding this compassion and empathy in the workplace is to take us from this place of loneliness and to start connecting, build that bridge and reconnect where we've seen so much disconnect. And so now where we sit today, where we are doing this loneliness epidemic is only going to get worse, because people now are so much more isolated because we have to be. And so we need to find creative ways to be able to reconnect and to talk more with others and to do this kind of stuff to keep people from falling deeper into that loneliness place. And part of that is understanding one of the solutions that all the research shows is belonging, is understanding belonging at its core. And that's a whole nother topic for another day that we could spend hours on. But understanding that we are hardwired for connection, right? We are human beings who are supposed to be connected. And the loneliness comes in when we're not. And so finding ways to fix that, to shift into this place of understanding that if we understand belonging and we work on putting people, in these spaces where they feel safe and they feel they belong, the loneliness goes away.
If you come across companies in the coming months in your work that are getting this right at this point, getting people connected, can you share that with us of how
Absolutely.
because these are fears that I have with my college son, because he is, I don't know if you know my whole thing that my two boys are blind. And my oldest one, he just, the blindness compounds it, but he is just such a human to human connection thing. That is his thing. And the conference calls, he's on a lot of group calls and still in his classes, and also he's still going, but he's not going to see people again or be near them until the fall. And they're even talking about maybe not the fall.
Right.
So I'm nervous for him about that, how to do that and stay connected with those people. So if you come across
Absolutely.
stuff that people are getting it
For
right,
sure.
send it our way. That'd be great.
Absolutely.
You know, I was thinking the word that you said that struck me was vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that has a negative connotation in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of the issue. But do you think that maybe because we are all, first of all, I think we should change the word to, instead of people being vulnerable, just be human. That would take some of the negativity out of it. But do you think that maybe because we are all in such a vulnerable situation, like the playing field is totally leveled with this pandemic we're in? I mean, do you see any kind of hope for these kinds of changes that you're talking about because of where we are right now?
So two things that I'm going to say to that. One, I would say I think we need to reframe vulnerability, because vulnerability is real power. It's strength. And being vulnerable just means that you are being seen. And so that's my goal, is to teach leaders what real vulnerability is and why it's so important, because it is about being human. It's about being connected. It's about allowing yourself to be seen. Even the parts that you kind of tuck away that you don't want to be seen, it's so critical, right? So there's that. And the second piece to that is, I think where we sit today, obviously it's awful. And, you know, these are scary times for many. And, you know, things are never going to be the same. We know this.
Mm-hmm.
However, in that, I think there are pieces of this that are going to change and evolve. Just like, you know, if you look back through history, there have been other times where things have changed and evolved and have never been the same. Doesn't mean that they were worse. It means that maybe some things are just different. And what I hope is that, like you said, we are on a different playing field right now. There's this sense of a different kind of unity that's happening right now, where this is you know, we've never had anything like this in our lifetime. Even what the thing that comes the closest, I would say, and a lot of people have compared it to, is 9/11 for us. And the difference here, though, is we are, as a globe, this is a global situation. I mean, this is everybody on this, in this universe, is going through the same thing at the same time. And so understanding that from a level of, yeah, you know what, we are all in this together. It goes back to that team dynamic idea that we're not alone. I think that's the hope. And I like to use the word possibility, because I think there's so much possibility in our handling of this from a leadership standpoint, from an opportunity to say, yeah, you know what, we are in this alone. And let's come at this with some compassion and some understanding and some empathy for, you know, our teammates and our coworkers and our employees. And how we're going to get through this is together. And I think that's the piece that is so hopeful, because I think that's what's going to lead us into the next phase.
I love it.
Wow, I love it too. Well, that was a perfect place for us to ask you now where people can get some of your wisdom on a regular basis, because we all need it. We all need more Jen Croneberger in our lives, people. All of us. I need my regular doses every so often. When I don't hear from you, or we don't, you know, I'm like, okay, what's she doing now? Because I just need to get your positivity. So tell people where they can reach you.
So you can find me. My website is www.the5words.com, and that's all spelled out. You can contact me there. You can find me on social media, Instagram and Twitter. I'm Jen Croneberger, easy. And on Facebook, Jennifer Lynn, Lynne, Croneberger. That's the page you can go to, and a lot happening there. But right now in this space, I'm also, you know, kind of allowing some back and forth. You know, if I can help anyone in any way, I've been putting that out a lot as well. Happy to have a conversation, or, you know, whatever you need. I'm here.
And the book is available on Amazon, I assume?
Yep, it is. I do have some that I can sign, so you can get that on my website as well, if you want to sign a copy.
We didn't even talk about the lifting your voice thing. We didn't even touch that with Tracy Davidson.
Right.
We'll have to have a whole nother show.
We'll have a whole other show about that. Awesome. That would be great. Kay, you got anything else?
No, this has been it's been so cool. Like I said, the timing that's what keeps happening on this journey. The timing is absolutely perfect that we got to have this chance to talk today. And I appreciate you fitting it into all the stuff you have going on.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Like I said, I smile a little more after I'm around you too. So
it could be a smile bordering on insanity, but we'll take a weekend.
And you run a little faster when we're all done.
No, not at all.
We have an impact on people.
I welcome you both. I really do. I appreciate what you're doing, and please keep doing it because it's bringing some joy and it's bringing some real tangible stuff, which we all need right now. So thank you.
Oh, cool. We appreciate that.
Thank you for being a part of that with us. And on that note, everybody, please look up Jen Croneberger. She is amazing, as you just heard. And thank you for joining us. And we will see you next time on Brilliantly Resilient Live.